For all things Pelicans, you're now tuned into the Pelican Post Game Report, PPR Weekly. We up in this thing. Shout out to the fan. Appreciate you guys for joining me for this episode of the Pelican Post Game Report. Much love to the fan. Appreciate all of the positive support from you guys. We love you. We appreciate you. Please feel free to light up all the notifications, subscribe, whatever, to help PPR, which is the longest running and number one independent Pelican podcast in the game. Man, we've been doing this thing for a while. We love the Pels and we diehards just like you guys. So I thank you straight up and much love to you guys. As we keep going through this saga, I was compelled, man, by a lot of the family faithful. We had a really productive show a couple of days ago where we kind of hashed out and went over a lot of this stuff dealing with Zion Williamson trade rumors. And I just wanted to remind the family members, and a lot of us already know this, that the way these people operate, a lot of these networks operate via narratives. They move from narrative to narrative. So once one narrative gets stale or cold, they move to the next. Sometimes they even regenerate narratives that have already been debunked from the past. And we've destroyed a lot of these same narratives that we've seen from the past. So I'm going to provide some receipts. That's what we do. That's how I do, fam. Sports coma, PPR. That's what we do. We're going to bring the receipts. We're going to bring the articles. We're going to bring the videos to show the narratives. And that, like I said originally, when everybody was saying, well, the majority of people were saying that Zion was going to be traded, I said that's ludicrous. It's ludicrous on his face because you can't trade him right now if he's amassed with scandal, his off-field issues, or court issues that he's dealing with right now, his injury issues he's dealing with right now. And a lot of people are not aware that Zion Williamson was never cleared. So I have video evidence of this that came out right after Zion Williamson at the end of the season, at end of the season press conference when Griffin spoke on it. I'm going to play that for you. I'm also saying that ESPN is one of these organizations you have to be very careful of when you get information. A lot of people out here are basically coming out and they're not really vetting the information just because they're saying this is not actually the case. Sometimes it's a hot button topic. Zion Williamson gets views for ESPN. That's what JJ Redick was involved with. That's what Stephen A. Smith was doing. He was the original creator of this New York that Zion was wanting. He would madly want to get. I'm gonna play you the videos of them people saying that, and we debunked this on several shows. So just walk with me, fam, if you don't mind. Walk with me on this episode of the Pelican Post Game Report. Let's get into it, and let's cover this article right here. We started off with Wendy talking about it as well. This is the Zion Williamson has no relationship with Pelicans amid trade rumors. Put your hand up in the chat if you heard this before. And put your hand up in the chat if you remember people coming out from the team and literally destroying this narrative. Put your hands up in the chat. We do this. We don't forget, like some of these people I get it. The attention spans or the technology done totally destroyed people's attention spans, a lot of people, and then their memories too. Their attention spans and memories just totally destroyed. So a lot of people don't remember what teammates said about Zion Williamson with this same narrative. So let me remind the faithful on how this goes. Let's cover this article from what he was saying here. So Zion Williamson was once expected to be the franchise cornerstone of the Pelicans, but now it appears the front office will be open to trading the 2019 number one overall pick. That is not the case. They're not trading him. I said it several days ago. I've done shows when it was at its hottest peak saying this is baloney. I'm not buying it. And now that they're falling off of it, the narrative is changing, and I'm going to show that too. Amid the rumors linking Williamson to a potential exit from the Big Easy, his relationship or lack thereof with the Pelicans is reportedly on the rocks. And this is what Wendy said. And actually, I'm going to just say his quote, and I'm going to play the actual podcast in which Wendy Windhorst said that. Yes, we got receipts. There's no relationship between Zion and the organization. No relationship between him and the organization. No relationship. And Brian Windhorst said of the Hoop Collective, and the minimal relationship between Zion and his teammates. So not only does he not have any relationship, according to what they're saying, with the organization, but he has minimal relationship between him and his teammates from what I understand, from what he gets. Not that he was told anything. So let's just play Wendy Windhorst from his own mouth. Here we go. Y'all put one in the chat if y'all can hear. Here we go.
Okay. All right. Zion Williamson. it's surprising to me how out there it is in the league that the Pelicans are discussing Zion business. I want to be very careful about the word offer because that word is a dangerous word. I'm not sure that
it's dangerous because it's not real. There is no offer for Zion Williamson. The Pelicans inquired about what it would take for them to move up to number 2. There is no offer. That's why it's a dangerous word, because it borders it being not true, being true.
The Pelicans have offered Zion to anybody, but every day that passes for the last 5 or 6 days, I hear a different discussion that the Pelicans have had that implies that they're going to make Zion available, and that him or Brandon Ingram. And I mean, I wouldn't rule out anything, I guess, but the events of the last 6 months,
him and Brandon Ingram, for real? Are we? Let's finish up.
With Zion are what they are.
Really, over the course of his career,
yeah,
28 games a season, 28 games a season.
And when he's on the floor, he's spectacular, but he ain't on the floor very often.
I'm very wary.
Off the floor, there's baggage.
We're entering into this time when there's so much misdirection and smoke screens. I am very wary of being made a tool or a fool, and it happens to the best of us.
You hear that?
It will probably happen to me in the next week.
Hear that?
I'm very wary, but it is extraordinarily out there about how much the Pelicans are interested in Scoot Henderson, to the point where I'm like, how is this out there so hard?
Right.
Unless the Pelicans want it out there. So I'm nervous about even giving that attention, but it is there. And Charlotte and Portland both have fascinating decisions. Charlotte has maybe the biggest decision in the draft between Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson, and they're working very hard on it. Different people are speculating different things every day that I talk to. Jonathan Gavoni, in his mock that came out on Tuesday, had Miller there, but I got people in the league thinking it's going to be Henderson, and which is probably the way Charlotte wants it. Right. Charlotte recently dispatched a whole bunch of people to Tuscaloosa to investigate and vet the situation with Brandon Miller. They had Scoot Henderson in and Brandon Miller in the last few days. I think I heard they're going to bring them both back in again for Michael Jordan. There's also the fact that Jordan is in negotiations to sell the team to one of the limited partners, Gabe Plotkin and a group. And I think there's a decent chance that's going to get done, but I don't know if it's going to get done in time to who makes a decision on the draft pick.
All right, let's stop it right there, man, because he kind of sidebars on to other stuff. But listen, what I'm saying is, you heard what he said? That back in that little disclaimer about being a tool or a fool for the bad information. And this is what I'm saying. Leading up to the draft, that's my key point in this whole broadcast. It's just to remind the faithful about narratives, and this is misdirection. And they do this. ESPN is notorious for putting out misdirecting articles that spark views. And a lot of content creators don't vet these people properly or use the analysis factor to come in and say, before I disseminate this to my audience, let me be responsible enough to kind of mull this over from a historical, analytical, logical standpoint, and then give it to my audience. Let me filter this. A lot of people not doing that. They just coming up and they reading these articles like they facts. And I'm telling you, they're not. He just said that he don't want to be a tool or a fool out of his own mouth for bad information. And it happened before. It won't happen again. That's out of Windhorst's own mouth. Y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that. Put one in the chat if you heard that. So we gonna walk through this thing. I'm not gonna keep you that long, but let's finish up, man. Let's go to the next point here. We talk about the information that makes mention of the fact that he has minimal relationship. Well, I mean, this Zion Williamson just met with Gail Benson today, or not today, a couple of days ago, and David Griffin was there. They also met. They congratulated him on his baby, and they had some discussion, some talking. We also realized that these narratives come back around. They regurgitate these narratives. They bring them up because the Pelicans mean a lot of views for ESPN and others, especially when you talk about Zion. Majority of the time when we're talking about Zion, they're talking about him in a negative light. That's what they do. Remember when everybody was lambasting Perkins? He came out and said the Pelicans should just move to another city, and he got lit up by the family base, and rightfully so. Now he's back in the cycle again, doing the same thing, saying that they should trade Zion out of here to somebody else, and they making mention of all these other big market teams. So once again, he's doing the same thing he did several months back about moving players off the Pelican team. He's back doing the same thing. That's ESPN, and a lot of these networks, they incentivize these people that sit up there on these desks to do this type of behavior. And this is a key point here. JJ Redick was one that's responsible for this narrative about him not being, he's a detached, remember this? He's a detached teammate. This was from February 22nd of last year. See, the narratives, they just recycle the narratives about JJ Redick. He got his ass up there on an ESPN bench after his playing days were over with, and he had to kiss tail to get up there next to Stephen A. And then he came out with this stuff, and he started lambasting Zion. And he said that this just shows a complete lack of investment in your team, in this organization, in the city, and then he said all that kind of stuff. And that was behind the thing that, that was dealing with CJ McCollum. Now, it's just, and I'm just showing narratives here. Let's just keep going with this thing, right? All right. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is this. And not only is it ESPN, but like I said, Fox do the same thing. Pelicans, Larry Nance Jr. defends Zion Williamson's injury rehab and rips Skip Bayless for crap that he said. I'm just showing you the support that the players, they saying there's no connection. There is a connection. And notice when all of the bad stuff happened, all of a sudden now, why wasn't this reported during the season? Like, at a point before the season ended that you were talking about, he was a DJ, because they couldn't say that. Now that everything's over with and you got all this stuff piling on, they're just piling on him with bull crap. Look what Larry Nance said about it. No one in our locker room is looking at Z any type of way. We're with him every step of his rehab and support his process physically and mentally. Don't listen to people saying things just to get views. Larry Nance. And that was about Skip Bayless saying Pelicans executives and players are not happy with Zion, who has been cleared to play, by team doctors. And that is not true. He never was cleared to play. And here is more proof. I got the goddamn receipts today, fam. Let's get it out. Listen to what David Griffin said about that.
So I talked to the league about this almost the day we won the lottery. The expectation was we're going to be on national TV 34 times. Well, he hadn't done anything to earn that yet, right? But that was the expectation placed upon him. That's hard. That's really challenging as a 19-year-old player at the time. And so I think there's been a lot put on him that's not fair. Some of it his own doing, quite frankly. He came up here the other day and told you all physically I'm fine, and nobody followed up on what that means. Well, physically I'm fine means I'm not currently injured. He wasn't physically cleared to play basketball. He was playing one-on-none. He went up and windmill dunk pregame. Well, that's not the skill set that makes you capable of playing skilled 5-on-5 basketball.
All right, now let me run this back again for the people all the way to the back of the room. He's talking about Zion Williamson. Remember, at the end of the season press conference, Zion Williamson got out there and said everything David Griffin said. David Griffin came out the next day with his presser and said to them, listen, this is what happened. He was never cleared to play. So you got all these people that's not doing their homework. We talking about the people at the networks and the people that's following the people from the networks and quoting what they're saying without verifying exactly what's going on. And the reason why we know this stuff is because that's what we deal with. We talk about the Pelicans. A lot of these other people, they don't. They just jumping in there to get views or to talk about this stuff. We know what we talking about because this is our squad. Win, lose, or draw. We here covering the Pelicans. We listen to all the press conferences. We listen to everything. We study it and we vet it. We check all of this out, and we're not perfect, but we do our absolute best. And that's why we the top in the game in terms of being the #1 independent Pelican podcast out here doing it. So once again, let me play it again, fam, so y'all can hear, and you can tell all these other people that's saying that he was cleared to play that they don't know that you got misinformation, and that's wrong stuff.
On what that means. Well, physically I'm fine means I'm not currently injured. He wasn't physically cleared to play basketball. He was playing one-on-none. He went up and windmill dunk pregame. Well, that's not the skill set that makes you capable of playing skilled 5-on-5 basketball.
David Griffin telling you right now, he was never clear to play. Never clear to play. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, that he was never clear to play just because he was dunking the ball, right? Let me play something else for you. And I don't want to play too much, man. Maybe, I'm gonna go, but let me take you back. Like we talk about Windhorst and ESPN. Let me show you guys how narratives is done. Remember, this was back some time ago. And they were talking about Zion Williamson and the Pelicans, and that Zion Williamson doesn't want to be with the team anymore. I definitely, and it was Stephen A. Smith. He's responsible for this whole little game plan. So this is a throwback, and this is what we do because we covered this on the show before, but this is more receipts. Listen to what happened back then when he was saying Zion Williamson that Stephen A. Smith was saying Zion Williamson doesn't want to be with New Orleans. His reports was telling him that and this is before he signed the extension, that he wanted to be up out of here, that he wanted to go to, that he wanted to be traded to a bigger market, that he loves New York. And they were saying the same thing these people are saying right now. These people are regurgitating narratives. Let's listen to this.
Not great, Molly. I think this video that he put out, while it was amazing to watch and a big reminder of why we're all such big believers in Zion's talent, it really kind of laid bare the issues that Zion has with the Pelicans organization. What I mean by that is that he wasn't cleared to do this. He hadn't been approved to do this type of action, and he's doing it, to send some sort of passive-aggressive statement. And this happened back when he was a rookie, when he was coming back from his knee injury. He wasn't happy with how the Pelicans brought him back. He thought it was too slow, that he hated how they had him in little short bursts. And then this year, he sits down after keeping the injury completely private. He comes down and says in his only interview he's given in a year that he was going to be back for opening night. And then he has setbacks. And because he has setbacks, the team wants to be very, very careful. So they want to bring him back slowly, but he wants to go back faster. When he has a setback in midseason, he leaves the team for 2 months. This is just an example of Zion and the Pelicans just not having a healthy relationship when it comes to injuries. And because he's dealt with so many injuries, it's vital. And so meanwhile, I don't know what the Pelicans' schedule was for ramping him up. Maybe they were going to clear him for one-on-one yesterday anyway. But from the outside, it looks like he put that video out and gets cleared to advance in his workouts. And so what's to prevent him in another week, if he hasn't been cleared to go to 3-on-3 or 5-on-5, from him putting out another video? It's just not an indication of a good relationship. And that's what has been bubbling under the surface of what could be a beautiful relationship, because this guy is so good, Stephen A.
All right, before Stephen A., who jerking his head because he can't help but to get the BS out of him, always jerking and working his head, stretching himself for whatever reason, weird dude. But what Windhorst said was actually correct. Like, because we got the information now. A lot of what was going on, and let me just share this with you guys because it's facts on stream, right? He needs to play. What went wrong with the Pelicans and head trainer Zion Williamson? He mentioned the short bursts, and Zion was frustrated with because a lot of what they were doing was specifically aimed at Zion, these different ramp ups, the 1-on-1v1 or 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, then the burst and all this kind of stuff was bull because they weren't doing that with anybody else. So he felt like, that wasn't the case. But NOLA.com, this is another article that talks about the Pelicans, how the athletic training staff, because remember, they demoted the athletic trainer, because they demoted the man because it wasn't just Zion. He missed a lot of games, but B.I. missed games. Jose Alvarado missed games. Dyson Daniel missed games. Herb Jones missed games. A lot of the Pelican faithful down the teams, a lot of the top teams, the top people on the team rather, missed games due to injury, and it took them extended time to get back to the team, to get back on the court. When the Pelicans, one of the top 2 teams in the West before the year turned over, by the time February was at an end, the Pelicans were, I think they were a 500 team or below 500. Y'all remind me, man. I try to purge all that crap out of my mind, but y'all remind me. All right, but anyway, short here before we jump back to Stephen A. Pelicans were criticized for their standard of underfunding athletic training staff back in 2016. That season, the Pelicans led the NBA in games lost to injury, right? Then Coach Elvin Gentry likened their injury-riddled campaign to the plight of the biblical character. This is a Job's season, said Elvin Gentry, which has given us some historical, contrast over how the Pelicans have been dealing with injuries for a very long time. Like the training staff been sucking and stinking, and they have not been doing a good job of how to get the rehab process going with these players. The Pelicans employed an athletic trainer, Dwayne Brooks, who was brought over from the football side after spending 13 seasons with the Saints. Their head strength and conditioning coach, Jason Summerlin, was previously with the Spurs, an organization he said that outpaced the Pelicans in terms of financial support devoted to player care and performance. 3 years later, the Pelicans hired David Griffin to be their lead executive. One of his first, and that was his first move. He came in and, overhauling the team's player care and performance department. He hired Phoenix Suns' Aaron Nelson to take charge as the vice president of player care and performance. Nelson, regarded as one of NBA's best trainers, did not come cheaply. He asked for significant changes to the Pelicans practice facility, which got thumbs up from ownership. The money came out was like $200,000+ to the training facility to upgrade it. In a slideshow presentation Griffin made to team staff members, Griffin wrote that player care and performance represented, quote, single greatest opportunity to gain on competition, end quote. At the bottom of the slide, he wrote, quote, coaching staff will be committed to the program, end quote. 4 years later, Nelson's run with the Pelicans could be over. While the team is maintained, he might be back next season in a different role as a part of the restructuring. Multiple team sources told Times-Picayune that they would be surprised if Nelson is around the team next season. So they haven't admitted to firing him, but he is not the head athletic trainer anymore. He was demoted within the team. So we'll figure this out, because I'm pretty sure right now the Pelicans are trying to find a new trainer, a head trainer, to come in and take over the team. As for comment, Nelson said he and the Pelicans are, quote, still working on the details, end quote, regarding his role next season, which he is veritas from his words, is that he's not in that position. He's not the head guy anymore. I don't know what my job is. I'm not the boss of that department anymore. Here's how things went wrong with New Orleans and Nelson, whose biography in Pelicans media guide reads that he is, quote, among the most well-regarded head athletic trainers in all of professional sport, end quote. So you talk about Zion Williamson's clash with the Pelicans training staff. Zion got hurt before playing in the game with the Pelicans. He tore his lateral meniscus in the right knee during the preseason in 2019. The Pelicans estimated it would take 6 to 8 weeks to recover. It took 13 weeks to get him back on the court. As the Time-Picayune first reported 2 years ago, Williamson became frustrated with the Pelicans for a number of hoops that made him jump through to play again. When Williamson finally made his NBA debut against the Spurs, the team placed him on, quote, bursts, end quote, limits, which he hated, right? Williamson caught fire in the fourth quarter, nailing threes en route to 17 straight points. Yet in the middle of the explosion, he was yanked out of the game with 5:23 to go. The Pelicans lost. Williamson played 18 minutes and 18 seconds. Gentry said he wasn't happy about it. Gentry was frustrated that the burst limits interrupted a magical moment and potentially cost his team a win. He also felt that Griffin and Nelson duo lacked feel for adhering to the burst limits in the fourth quarter, despite the way the game was going. Williamson's relationship with Nelson became strained during the rookie season at different points. Williams refused to work with him. He was rocky his first few months for Nelson, who arrival at the Pelicans was trumpeted with a glowing 1,800-word profile on his team website. Healthiest season came under Stan Van Gundy, and Stan Van Gundy, we covered it on the show when Van Gundy talked about why he was able to get the most out of Zion Williamson. We talked about it. We covered it, and we played the interview here, well, most of it. That Stan Van, the most, pertinent part of the interview was Stan Van was talking about Zion Williamson getting back on the court and working his way back into shape, and here's a portion of the video right there when he gave it, and we played that. I won't play it right now because I got other things I want to cover with you guys, but it's crazy, man. And I can go on and go forward, but it talks in the article about Ingram missing extended time too. Williamson missed 45 games last season with a strained hamstring, and there's other players that are going to the same stuff, but not at the length of Zion Williamson. But other injuries are occurring across the team that people just are spotlighting Zion Williamson because he's a massive name in the game. He wasn't the only key Pelicans piece to miss extended time. Ingram set out 29 consecutive games with an injury the team described as a left toe contusion. Ingram kicked the back of a Memphis Grizzlies player foot in November, 2 days after the injury. Willie said Ingram was day to day. Boy, that was an understatement. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Ingram did not play again until January the 25th. That's exactly 2 months after hurting his toe. There was a significant frustration with the Pelicans organization about Ingram's extended absence. Several people felt that Ingram was capable of playing. And they're like, okay, BI wants to play. And remember, they were kind of spinning it like it was BI not wanting to play because he felt like he wasn't healthy or whatever. The Pelicans sunk from the first place in the Western Conference to ninth. They were eliminated in the NBA playing tournament by OKC. A season that started with so much promise fizzled out because of the amount of time New Orleans' best two players missed. Williamson and Ingram combined to miss 90 games. They played 45% of the team's games. Of course, we played what David Griffin was saying about he don't want it to be a narrative about our team. And the injury situation. The Pelicans have been dealing with this for a long time. So I'm just showing you this article, and anybody can read this full article, fam. It's at NOLA.com. And you can go and check that out. And they were saying NBA insiders shocked by Aaron Nelson's role change. They were shocked when Nelson was informed he would no longer be in charge of the Pelicans player care and performance team. Nelson and Griffin were friends dating back to their time with the Suns, and Griffin gave Nelson a huge amount of power. One of the biggest complaints about Nelson's time in charge was how inflexible he could be. Didn't want to listen. Williamson's burst short in NBA debut was a prime example. Like, when do we employ the burst strategy? Like, if you win in the game, and it's just crazy, man. Other NBA sources wondered if Nelson was being scapegoated for Williamson and Ingram shortcoming as unreliable stars. Come on. Williamson posed an unprecedented blend of size and speed with a penchant for being out of shape, a recipe for getting injured. Ingram had sometimes seemed unwilling to play through minor discomfort to the point to where hold on, fam. I'm sorry. All right, Ingram has sorry about that. To the point where some of the teammates have become frustrated with him over the past 2 years. The Pelicans thought they had solved their player care performance problem by hiring Nelson 4 years later. Nelson's time in charge of the department is over. It was not what it was supposed to be. It was not what it was supposed to be. Our top two players missing a lot of games, and it's just crazy, man. But anyway, let's get back to this right here. Let's get back to the Stephen A. Smith thing that we talked about. But what I'm doing is I'm just merely making light of the fact that this is not all on a guy on Zion Williamson. The Pelicans have fired their head athletic trainer because of the injury situation. Not just they pinpointed in that particular article Zion and BI, but they had other players that were injured that had expedited timelines as well. But in terms of the ramped up process, Zion was upset because he had to do things that other players didn't have to do. He felt that was incredibly unfair. But anyway, back to the original point about narratives. Listen to what Stephen A. Smith said about a year ago about Zion not wanting to be in New Orleans.
Wendy, you are absolutely 1,000% right. I just think that you didn't provide the finishing sentence. And that is this. There isn't much of a relationship because Zion Williamson doesn't want to be there. Let's just call it what it is. He doesn't want to be a New Orleans Pelican. He wishes he was somewhere else. And that's why the focus should only be on Zion getting back on the court. The rest of the organization should be focused on Mr. David Griffin. Now, I like Griffin. I like him a lot. I thought that he did a damn good job in Cleveland. LeBron didn't win that championship by himself. Yes, he had the services of Kyrie and Kevin Love or what have you. But he also had an executive in David Griffin who worked diligently to give them the things they said they needed in order for this team to ultimately win a chip while still remaining highly competitive. Now, obviously, LeBron James had everything to do with that.
Okay, come on, man. Come on. Because I'm about to hand it to you right there. The bottom line is LeBron James was telling David Griffin what players he wanted. Come on, man. Did you say all that and then bring it back to LeBron was the one telling him what to say? Come on, bro.
But nevertheless, it's not like the cupboard was left bare and he wasn't provided any kind of support.
So I was supportive of Griffin. I'm supportive of him in New Orleans. I think that he's a hell of a basketball mind. Sometimes, Wendy, and I think that you can appreciate this because I don't have to do any more what you do because I'm on TV all the time hosting shows, even though I obviously still have a lot of connections. But you are on it on a day in, day out basis, and you're on top of this. So I can say this to you, and you're going to appreciate this. David Griffin is one of those dudes. And I don't say this as a negative. I say this as a positive. He's got the ego of players. He got something to prove. He wants to prove all the time how gifted he is as an executive, as opposed to laying back and realizing he's already proven it. And he shouldn't have anything to prove. Just do your job.
All right. Okay. David Griffin do have a big ego, and that's inside baseball. That's not really something that we don't know. We've been dealing with David Griffin for a while. We have a little cute nickname we call him because he's been quite the micromanager. Although this past year he's done a wonderful job of taking his hands off and allowing people to do their jobs. You got a very good general manager in Trajan Langdon who was doing a vertical move to go to Washington, a team that hadn't won anything in a while, to be their general manager and leave the Pelicans and Zion Williamson. And they trying to trade their best player, Bradley Beal. A vertical move, not that he was going up to be a David Griffin, but he was a vertical move just to do his job. Because listen, man, we know what time it is here. We know what time it is.
He gets rid of Alvin Gentry after swearing up and down that Alvin Gentry is his guy. Then he goes the Stan Van Gundy route, and you only let him stay there 1 year before you got rid of him. Now you got Willie Green, and I'm very happy with Willie Green, and I'm not even judging him by this year because you had so many injuries, and Zion hasn't played the game, and Brandon Ingram has been unhealthy. You got C.J. McCollum there. Ladies and gentlemen, let me put y'all on notice about C.J. McCollum, formerly of the Portland Trailblazers, now in New Orleans. The brother's averaging 26 a game in the 16 games or so that he has played. He's averaging 26 a game, on 50% shooting from the field and 39% shooting from three-point range. Plus, he's a consummate professional. He's going to show up. He doesn't wilt in big moments. And you put him on a court with a healthy Ingram, a healthy Zion Williamson, with guys who actually want to play and want to be there, with some of the other pieces that they have. I got news for you. New Orleans could surprise some people. Maybe not this year. They could surprise some people. But the reality is, Wendy, Zion don't want to be there. And when he put out that video, it was the latest example of how they're not on the same page. He wants to play. He might be anxious to play, but he wants to play and averages 27-7 and win games and do enough to solidify his status as a young star in this league while always praying somebody will get him the hell up out of there so he can end up in a market like New York or LA or something like that. That's Zion Williamson. They can say what they want, but I've heard enough to know that this is what the brother would prefer. And so when you've got Griffin holding him out, you've got a situation where a player in his camp may not necessarily trust Griffin. And they might think you being held out because we want you to play next year, because the more you show now, the more pressure might mount to get me the hell up out of there, which is a problem that Griffin may not want to deal with.
But Stephen A. Smith said, hey, man, he don't want to be here. He's looking to get up out of here. So what I'm saying is, now, let me play Adrian Wojnarowski, his thoughts on it, because no matter how you cut it, the best insider in basketball, inside basketball stuff, that know how to vet that stuff to his best ability is this guy. And this guy who is come on now, Wojnarowski is the top NBA insider in the game. If we talking about insiders in NBA, it ain't Shams, it ain't all these other guys. It's Adrian Wojnarowski. He's the top dude there. And this is what he said. Let me remind the faithful of what he said about Zion Williamson's situation. Here we go.
I agree 100%, Ryan. I think if you were going to trade, listen, it's hard to trade a player when maybe his value is a little bit of a low. Like he said, played 29 games last year. Certainly they wish he played more. They need him available more. They need Brandon Ingram available more if they're going to really contend. But unless you're getting in at 2 or 3 in the draft, and I don't think they're going to get in at 2 or 3, and I don't know that they've offered Zion to anybody, I would be surprised. I would be really, really surprised if they moved off of him. Now, teams can quietly test the value of what a player is, team GM, president, who's close with another GM and doesn't think it'll get out, can make the call one-on-one. Hey, would you do player X for player Y? And I think that happens more than people know. You're seeing what the value, you might suspect what their player's value is, but you can get it confirmed by calling around a little bit. Sometimes that can get out, or sometimes I would be shocked. I'm not saying that the Pelicans have done any of that. I don't know that they have with Zion, but it does happen. That doesn't mean you're looking to trade a guy. You just want to know what he's worth. That happens all the time. I would say outside of, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 players in the league, it probably happens with almost everybody else at some point. But he's too talented. He's still too young. You saw in that brief period last year, they had the best record in the league, right? When he went down or close to it. He's unstoppable when he's on the floor. And so I think you give it at least another year or two. But I don't know that right now is the time to move off of a guy when, again, if you're moving off of him, hypothetically, if I'm another team and I'm asking for another young all-star player, I'm saying to myself, they know that player better than I do. They know way more than I do. And the fact that they're willing to give up on him, why should I trade for him? I think that is some of the thought. Now, different organizations are at different places in terms of risk reward. And then, of course, what are you giving up for him? All that being said, listen, I won't rule anything out. You can't in this league, but I would still be really, really surprised if Zion Williamson is not on New Orleans opening night roster.
Thank you, Adrian Wojnarowski, man. And like I said, and not to take nothing away from these other guys, man, but like I said, man, a lot of the stuff that's coming out, you have to be leery of it, very leery of what's going on about, especially when it comes down to the Pelicans, when people start talking about rumors dealing with the Pelicans, and then the narratives change. And we said, man, the guy ain't going nowhere. We gave our reasons why he wasn't going anywhere when it was at the peak of, oh, he's going to get traded. And then the narratives change. Listen to this.
Maybe month here for Zion, from the, having a baby to all the extracurricular sucky and all the stuff that's going on there. And then now apparently he might be getting traded. People are calling for that. Is there a chance that we're going to see Zion not in New Orleans next year? What the hell's going on?
Okay, so I'll just break it down like this. I to my knowledge, the Pelicans haven't called the Charlotte Hornets and said, hey, do you want to do Zion Williamson for the number 2 pick? But what I think has been relayed to number 2, which the Pelicans, and I reported this earlier this week, they want Scoot Henderson. They want to move up in this draft. They have the number 14th pick. There's a player named Scoot Henderson. He played for the last 2 years for the G League Ignite. He did not go to college. He left in high school to go play professionally for the NBA's G League elite team. And he's going to be a potential franchise guard, a guy that we're going to be talking about for years to come. This guy is athletic. His body is built like he could have played last year in the NBA. This guy can jump. He's got good vision. Shooting, definitely something that he's continuing to work on. But there's a lot of belief around the league and around the Pelicans that this guy can be a franchise point guard, that he has the makeup. He can tone set for us. He's a culture builder. So they want to go get him. So just realistically, when you look at it, the only way you're going to go get a guy like that is if you're going to have to give up someone like Zion Williamson. So
that's not necessarily true, man. And that's why I got a problem with him feeding that in there, because he knows that's not the case, that there are other ways that you can get a guy like that where you don't have to give up Zion Williamson. But even though you say that, you didn't say this.
I'm just saying, if you're trying to go get him, you have to give something up that makes sense. But what I have heard is I don't know if the Hornets would want Zion Williamson. I think who the Hornets want, from what I'm told, is Brandon Ingram. And so the Pelicans, the draft is less than a week away. Yeah. The draft is less than a week away. And we'll see if the Pelicans get to the point as an organization where do we move either Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson? I think that is the big question going into next week.
All right. So there you go. Now the narrative now is Brandon Ingram. You see how this goes? We said that was ridiculous. Zion Williamson is not on the table for him to trade. And the thing is, even if he, and like I said, remember the fact that he wasn't cleared to play. He never was cleared to play. I showed them receipts today. And the fact of the matter is he never was cleared to play. That's one. The other one is he's right now having his off-court issues with the women and all that kind of stuff. So he's not an attractive piece to sell or trade, right? That's you don't trade them when they're going through stuff like that. That's why I was saying, commonsensically speaking, you're not going to get fair value for him if that's real. And it turns out it's not. Now the narrative shifts to now Brandon Ingram being a guy that they want for the number 2 pick. So I guess we wants to trade Brandon Ingram now, right? Well, it's just, you see how this is all bad information? This is all bad information. This stuff is designed to be sensational. It's designed, it sounds ridiculous because it's designed to be ridiculous, because it's so ridiculous. People are clicking on it and reading and believing, and they're not giving anything. Like, you talking about trading Zion Williamson, and then if you had an actual conversation with the Charlotte Hornets about who they want, why you still mentioning Zion Williamson then? If you know they want Brandon Ingram, if they told you they want Brandon Ingram, that's why I said the Pelicans are not going to trade BI or Zion. They're not giving them guys up. So just because you want a guy like Scoot Henderson, don't necessarily mean you're going to give him and get him. And then unless Hornets want to take anybody not named Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, or Trey Murphy, then they can keep Scoot Henderson and the Pelicans can keep doing what they're doing. Like, key point, how do we fix it, Q? I just showed the family members about the article dealing with the training staff, right? All the stuff that went wrong with the training staff, that they demoted the head trainer, Aaron Nelson. They still haven't fit that new role. According to the information that we have, there is no new person there that they announced yet. So they have to find a new credible, I don't know where you go with Aaron Nelson. He was one of the top in the NBA. Where do you go from there? I don't know. But the Pelicans, this is the key thing that the Pelicans need to fix going forward, because we were suffering from the injury matrix prior to, when we had the 2016, we had Gentry and them here. We were going through that then. Now we're still going through it, which shows us we have not fixed it to the point where it has been severely minimized, where it's not impacting how we're winning games. We're not winning games because our best players are unavailable. Zion Williamson missed 40-something games. I forgot how many games. If it's more than that, y'all put it in the chat. Let me know. I forget. And then B.I. missed his 20-something 9 games last year, and he was supposed to be back a lot sooner. If he'd have came back half that time when he was supposed to, could you imagine what that means for the Pelican season? We would have not been needing to fight through a play-in. We would have actually been in the actual playoffs. So it's just, this is the number one thing the Pelicans need to do. Let's just refocus it. The number one thing the Pelicans need to do is fix. They need to get the athletic trainer staff together. They need to get a new head trainer, somebody that's credible, that's respected, that has results, that can come in and make things happen in terms of the injury situation and severely minimize it, cut it down 20%, 25%, do the very best to do whatever is needed to make that not be a thing anymore, right? Or severely reduce what we have to go through in terms of our injuries, right? And the second thing, of course, is the Pelicans haven't done a bad job of drafting. All of a sudden they want Scoot Henderson. It's a price to pay. But Scoot goes with your core players, the 3 guys that I mentioned. If you can't get Scoot without giving up those 3, then I say no to Scoot. And remember, the Pelicans can still get a Scoot Henderson if the Charlotte Hornets want, and I know they won't be according to what he said, but at the end of the day, could we really, if they really want picks, the Pelicans have a treasure trove of first-round draft picks, fam. You can give them 3 players, 3 picks and 3 first-round picks, and however you want to put it together to try to swim. But the bottom line is the Hornets are not coming up off that pick, fam. They're not coming up off that pick. That's the bottom line. This is all rhetoric leading up to the draft. Zion's not getting traded. Now it moves to BI. They want BI. We know we're not trading Brandon Ingram. So what will it be tomorrow or the day after? It'll be Trey Murphy? Come on now. We got to stop it at some point and start really commenting these people's comment sections, family, to shut these people down about saying the type of things that they're saying. And I played Windhorst from his own mouth saying that he don't want to be a tool, or a fool or somebody that has that is being fed information. And I don't mean it in a negative light because of Wendy's disposition, but I'm saying he's been given information where it's bad information leading up to the draft about a particular player or what's going on with the team. That sullies your name because I don't forget it and I'm going to bring it up just like I did with Stephen A and JJ Redditt. ESPN does this stuff, man. That's what they do. But anyway, listen, that's going to be the end of the show. Listen, thank you guys. I love y'all and I appreciate y'all, man. It's a lot of hard work going to make these shows, man, doing the research and all the stuff that we do. If you love what we're doing, please feel free to support us. Hit the light up all of the notification buttons. I mean, hit everything. If you're not a subscriber, the diehard Pelican family base, we up in this thing. We standing up. We keeping it real. We telling the truth about what's going on to the best of our ability. We do the research and we are consistent. We are thorough. So please rock with us. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this show with other Pelican people. Say, man, listen to this show. They have facts and stats that these people are creating narratives to benefit off of our team. They don't cover the team when the team is doing good. They won't cover the team and give all this negative light to the team so they can build up they add revenue in their stuff out here with ESPN doing, man. So, and question these other people that are doing shows. Question them, or what are you vetting the information? Are you actually going, well, such and such said it, so I'm saying, well, such and such said, well, you just as wrong as he is. Let's kind of elevate this as a family base, man. Let's take this to another level and kind of squash a lot of this BS down, fam. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I'm gonna get out on this. I'm Big Q. Appreciate you guys for being in the stream, man. Much love to y'all. Squad, hit up all the like buttons, the subscribe buttons, share this stuff, man. Put this among the Pelican faithful and let them know, man, we're not falling for it. Much love to the fam. I'm holla at y'all on the draft stream. Much love, peace, and I'm out.